My name is Sarah, and I've been a waitress for longer than I care to admit. Most days are the same, the clatter of plates, the murmur of conversations, the smell of coffee and bacon. I thought I'd seen it all. I thought nothing could surprise me anymore. Then came a Tuesday. A day I will never forget. The day a simple order changed everything. The rain was coming down hard that morning, tapping a sad little rhythm on the diner windows. Business was slow. Just a few regulars huddled over their newspapers and steaming mugs. I was wiping down the counter, lost in my own thoughts, wondering if the day would ever pick up. The bell above the door jingled, softly, almost shyly. I looked up. A soldier stood there. He was young, maybe mid-20s. His uniform was neat, pressed, but it couldn't hide the weariness in his eyes. A deep, profound tiredness that went bone deep. He scanned the diner quickly. His gaze didn't linger on anyone. He just found an empty booth by the window and slid in, quietly, as if he didn't want to disturb the air. I grabbed a menu and a glass of water, walked over to his table. "Morning," I said, trying for a cheerful tone. He looked up. His eyes were a pale blue, like a winter sky. "Morning, ma'am," he replied. His voice was low, gravelly, like he hadn't used it much lately. He glanced at the menu, but I had a feeling he wasn't really seeing the words. His fingers traced the laminated edge. "Just coffee, please," he said finally. "Black, coming right up," I told him. "Anything to eat?" He hesitated. His eyes drifted to the rain-streaked window, then back to me. "Apple pie," he said. "Just a slice of apple pie if you have it." "We sure do," I smiled. "Best in town or so they say." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. So faint I almost missed it. "Sounds good," he murmured. I went to put in his order. Black coffee, apple pie, simple, humble. It reminded me of my brother Ben. Ben was a soldier too. He loved apple pie. Mom's apple pie. He never came home to have another slice. A pang went through my chest. An old ache. I pushed it down. This wasn't about Ben. This was a customer. I brought him his coffee first. He cupped his hands around the warm mug, stared into the black liquid, as if searching for answers in its depths. When the pie arrived, he looked at it for a long moment. Then he picked up his fork. He ate slowly, deliberately. Each bite seemed thoughtful. Or maybe painful. I couldn't quite tell. He didn't rush. The rest of the world could hurry. He was in his own time. "Mr. Henderson," my boss grumbled from behind the register. "Slow day, Sarah. Real slow." "It'll pick up," I said, more to reassure myself. But my attention kept drifting back to the soldier. There was a sadness about him. A heavy cloak of it. It was more than just tiredness. I'd seen tired soldiers before. But passing through, this was different. This was a sorrow that had settled deep in his soul. I found myself wanting to do something. Anything. My brother Ben, he'd been so young too, so full of life. Before I walked over to Mr. Henderson. "That soldier in booth 4, I said quietly, "his meal. It's on me, or on the house. Whichever you prefer." Mr. Henderson raised an eyebrow. He was a good man, but business was business. "Why's that, Sarah?" He looks like he needs a little kindness today," I said. It was the best explanation I could offer. He looked over at the soldier. His gruff expression softened a little. Mr. Henderson had served a long time ago. He understood things without needing many words. "All right, Sarah," he said. "On the house." I felt a small sense of relief. It wasn't much, but it was something. The soldier finished his pie. He pushed the plate away gently. Then he just sat there, nursing the last of his coffee, staring out at the rain. His shoulders were slumped. He looked so utterly alone. The diner was still quiet. The few other customers were lost in their own worlds. After a long while he signaled for me. I walked over. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet. He laid a $20 bill on the table. For a coffee and a slice of pie that couldn't have been more than $5 or $6. "Ma'am," he said, his voice still low. "The pie was good, really good. It reminded me of." He stopped. His throat worked. He looked down at the table. My heart squeezed. "It's on the house, soldier," I said softly. "No charge today. Thank you for your service." He looked up sharply. Surprise flickered in his weary eyes. Then something else. something vulnerable. You don't have to do that. We want to, I said, trying to offer a reassuring smile. It's the least we can do. He nodded slowly. A single jerky nod. Thank you, he whispered. He looked like he wanted to say more. But the words wouldn't come. Can I sit here for a bit longer? He asked. If it's no trouble. Of course, I said. Take all the time you need. I refilled his coffee cup. He fumbled in his breast pocket, pulled out something small. A photograph. It was worn, creased at the edges. He laid it on the table, stared at it intently. His fingers gently traced the surface of the photo, as if trying to feel the people in it. I got busy with another table, clearing plates, wiping spills. But I kept glancing his way. He was so still, so lost in that little square of paper. Then I heard it, a tiny sound, almost inaudible over the diner's low hum, and the drumming rain, a choked sob. My breath caught. I moved closer, pretended to wipe down the booth behind him. He was leaning over the photo, his shoulders shaking slightly. He was talking to it, whispering, so quietly I could barely make out the words. Told you, buddy, he mumbled. Told you I'd come. I'd have one for you. My heart broke into a million pieces right there. This wasn't just a soldier having a quiet meal. This was something much deeper, much more painful. He looked up suddenly, saw me standing nearby. His eyes were wet, red-rimmed. He looked instantly embarrassed, mortified. I'm sorry, he stammered, quickly trying to compose himself, wiping at his eyes with the back of his hand. Don't be sorry, I said softly. My voice was a little shaky too. I pulled out a chair from a nearby table and before I could second-guess myself, I sat down in the booth opposite him. It wasn't proper waitress behavior, but I didn't care. Is everything all right? I asked gently. A stupid question. Of course it wasn't. He shook his head, took a deep, ragged breath. No, ma'am, not really. I nodded towards the photograph. Who is that? I asked. He hesitated for a long moment. Then, as if a dam inside him had finally broken, he slid the photo across the table. I picked it up. It showed two young men, both in uniform, grinning widely at the camera, arms slung around each other's shoulders. Brothers in arms. One was the soldier sitting before me, but younger, happier. The other man had bright, mischievous eyes. That's Corporal David Miller, the soldier said. His voice cracked on the name. He was my best friend. My brother. He paused. He didn't make it back. The words hung in the air, heavy, final. The quiet diner suddenly seemed even quieter. I noticed Mrs. Gable from table 2, and old Mr. Peterson at the counter. They were looking over, not staring rudely, but with a sort of quiet concern, as if they sensed something profound was happening. This pie, the soldier continued, his voice thick with unshed tears. The apple pie and black coffee. It was his favorite. He always said if he ever made it back to the States, this was the first thing he'd have. He swiped at his eyes again. We were supposed to come here together. He grew up not far from this town. He talked about this diner all the time. Henderson's, he called it. Said they had the best darn apple pie in the county. My breath hitched. Henderson's. This diner. David Miller. A local boy. He made me promise. The soldier whispered, his gaze fixed on some distant point beyond the rainy window. He said, Mark, if anything happens to me, you gotta go to Henderson's for me. You gotta have a slice of that pie. For me. Promise me. His name was Mark. I just got back in the country. Mark said, his voice barely audible. Landed this morning. Drove straight here from the airport. I had to keep my promise. Tears were streaming down his face now, unashamed. And I couldn't stop my own from falling. My heart ached for him, for his friend David, for all the promises broken and kept by war. The whole diner was silent, utterly silent. You could hear the rain, you could hear Mark's quiet sobs, you could probably hear my own heart beating. Everyone was listening, everyone was feeling it. Mr. Peterson, the elderly veteran who always sat at the counter, cleared his throat loudly. His eyes were suspiciously bright. He slowly took off his glasses and polished them with his napkin. Mark was talking more freely now, as if the words once started, couldn't be stopped. He told me about David, about their barracks jokes, their dreams of coming home, the letters they wrote, the fears they shared in the dead of night. He painted a picture of a vibrant, brave young man, a man who loved apple pie and his best friend. He wasn't just ordering a simple meal. He was performing a sacred ritual, an act of love, an act of remembrance. Then a movement caught my eye. Mrs. Henderson, the owner's wife. She rarely came out from the kitchen. She was a quiet woman, always busy baking. She was walking towards our booth. She was holding a fresh, whole apple pie. Steam curled up from it. The aroma filled the small space. She reached our table. Her own eyes were red. Her lips trembled slightly. She set the pie down gently, in the middle of the table, between Mark and me. "David Miller," she said. Her voice was soft, but it carried in the hushed diner. "He used to come in here when he was just a boy. Always with his mother. Always ordered the apple pie. And a glass of milk." She smiled sadly. "His mother Martha Miller. She still comes in sometimes. Sits in this very booth." Mark looked absolutely stunned. His tear-filled eyes wide. "You knew him. You knew David." "Oh honey," Mrs. Henderson said, her voice thick with emotion. "This whole town knew Davy. He was a wonderful boy. He was a good lad, Mr. Peterson called out from the counter, his voice gruff but unmistakably choked. "A real hero. We were all so proud of him." Mark stared from Mrs. Henderson to Mr. Peterson. He looked overwhelmed, as if he couldn't quite believe what was happening. He'd come to a strange diner in a strange town, to fulfill a lonely promise, and found this. Suddenly there was a gasp from a few booths over. A woman was standing up, slowly. Her hand was pressed to her mouth. Her eyes were fixed on Mark. She was crying, openly, deep, wrenching sobs. She took a hesitant step forward, then another. I'm Martha Miller," she said, her voice trembling, broken by grief. "I'm David's mother." The air in the diner crackled. Time stopped. I couldn't breathe. Nobody could. The plot twist of a lifetime, unfolding in a small-town diner on a rainy Tuesday. Mark stared at her. His jaw dropped. He slowly, unsteadily, got to his feet. She walked towards him. He seemed rooted to the spot. Then he took a step. And another. They met in the small aisle between the booths. They just looked at each other for a long, silent moment. A mother who had lost her son. A soldier who had lost his best friend. A chasm of grief between them. And a bridge of shared love. Then Martha Miller reached out. She pulled Mark into a hug. A fierce, desperate mother's hug. The kind that tries to mend the unfixable. The kind that says everything words cannot. "He wrote about you." She sobbed into Mark's shoulder, her body shaking. "In his letters, he wrote about his best friend. Mark, he said you always had his back." Mark was holding her just as tightly, his own tears streaming down his face, pouring out all the pain he'd carried for so long. "He saved my life, ma'am," Mark choked out. "David saved my life. He pushed me out of the way. He took the hit that was meant for me." A collective gasp went through the diner. Now everyone understood. The depth of the sacrifice. The weight of the promise. There wasn't a dry eye in the place. Not one. Old Mr. Henderson had come out from the back. He stood by the kitchen door, openly wiping his eyes. Mrs. Gable was dabbing at her cheeks with a napkin. Even the gruff short-order cook Sal peered through the service window, his face uncharacteristically somber. We were all crying. For David, for Mark, for Martha, for the terrible cost of it all, and for the incredible love that still shone through. Mr. Henderson walked over. He put a large, gentle hand on Mark's shoulder. "Son," he said, his voice thick with unshed tears. "Any friend of David Miller's is family here. You hear me? Family. Your meals are on the house. Always. Anytime you come through." Mark could only nod, his face buried in Mrs. Miller's embrace. Then something amazing happened. People started to get up from their tables, not to leave, but to come over to Mark and Mrs. Miller. They didn't intrude. They just offered quiet words. "So sorry for your loss, Martha. Thank you for your service, son. David was a hero." They offered handshakes, pats on the back. Some of the older women hugged Martha. One by one they came, sharing in the grief, offering comfort, creating a circle of warmth and support around this grieving mother, and this heartbroken soldier. The lonely soldier who had walked in a stranger, seeking only to fulfill a quiet promise, was suddenly surrounded by people who understood, people who cared. He wasn't alone anymore. Not in this town. Not in this diner. Mrs. Miller eventually led Mark back to the booth. Mrs. Henderson sliced into the fresh apple pie. She put a large piece in front of Mark, and another in front of Martha. They sat together for hours, talking, sharing stories of David. Martha told Mark about David's childhood, his first bike, his terrible teenage band, his dreams of being a pilot. Mark told Martha about their training, their deployment, David's courage, his humor even in the darkest times. They laughed through their tears. They cried through their smiles. They found solace in sharing their memories, in keeping David's spirit alive between them. I kept their coffee cups full. I moved quietly around the diner, my own heart full to bursting. I watched them, this unlikely pair, brought together by tragedy, and by a simple slice of apple pie. That rainy Tuesday didn't pick up much in terms of business, but something far more important happened. A community came together. A promise was honored. A heavy burden was shared. It showed me that even in the deepest grief, there can be light. There can be unexpected connection. There can be incredible kindness. That diner, usually just a place for a quick meal, became a sanctuary, a place of healing, a place where tears were not shed alone. All because a soldier carrying the weight of the world on his young shoulders ordered a simple meal, and because ordinary people chose to open their hearts, chose to see, chose to listen, chose to care. It reminded me that sometimes the smallest gestures can have the biggest impact. A free piece of pie, a listening ear, a shared story. These are the things that mend broken hearts. These are the things that make us human, and I'll carry the memory of that day with me, always. Thank you for listening to this story. We hope it touched your heart as much as it touched ours. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below sharing your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt stories. Sharing this video helps us reach more people, so if you know someone who might appreciate this story, please share it with them. Until next time, take care, and remember the power of kindness.